Shiksha. How are you?
Good, great. Good to
Yes.
meet you.
How does it feel being the one being interviewed? You know, you're used to doing the interviews all the time.
Sometimes I'm just like, I hate interviews. I hate being interviewed because I'm so used to being on the other end.
Yes.
So when someone asks me, can we interview? At the times I'm like, okay, wait, how am I supposed to behave?
Why is it?
You know?
Why is it difficult for us to be interviewed? Why do
It's
you
just
think?
a thing. You
Yeah.
as well?
Yes.
It's just a journalist thing, I believe. You know, when you're so comfortable doing something,
Yes.
and then of course, at times you're like pulled out of your comfort zone. So now I'm just like on the hot seat.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, best behavior.
Mind what you're saying.
Be careful.
Be careful. Okay, so today we're here to talk about you and your amazing career and as a celebrity personality in this industry. For those who will be hearing about you for the first time today, who is Shiksha?
I am a vibrant, bold personality who believes in doing what you dream of, and who always wants to do something that's out of the box. Be it creativity in terms of dancing, or be it just in terms of being the news anchor that's not your usual, stereotypical news anchor that people see. Serious, very, studious, very smart, and very rigid. That's not who I am. I believe in being somebody who can do anything that they put their minds to. So I am a dancing anchor, as you rightly said, and I'm somebody who likes to just go out there and do things with lots of passion. So I'm a very passionate human being.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know, is it because you're Indian and dancing comes naturally to you?
Not
'Cause we have
really.
seen those Indian movies that...
Can I tell you something? That is the biggest myth. Because personally, if you ask me, Indians are the worst dancers. Especially when you
Really?
like choreograph dancing,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But oh yeah, when you give them a step and the beat comes on, they'll move their shoulders, not gonna lie. But at the same time, I strongly believe that that's a myth. Not all Indians are good dancers.
Yes.
Just the same way, not all Indians eat chili. So just thought I'd put that out there.
No, I can't
yes,
believe that.
It's a myth. I personally know of some very bad dancers who are also of Indian descent.
Yes,
So
yes.
don't worry, I've seen it all.
Yes.
It's a wide spectrum.
Yes. You stumbled into media. It was like a stumble, right? It wasn't something you had planned as a career at the beginning. You
Yes.
went and studied microbiology.
Yes, I actually, yes. To be very honest, I wanted to be a researcher. I wanted to do all things science. I've always the one person who's very intrigued by little, organisms. So be it bacteria, virus, or fungi. So I did microbiology in my undergraduate. But then along the way, I got a job at Radio Africa. And I guess that's when I realized what my true passion is. It was being the storyteller. Telling stories, entertainment, creating awareness, informing people. So that's how it all began. And then along the way, I realized this is not what I want to do, but I still had to finish my degree. So I finished my 4 years, and then I went on to do my master's in not microbiology, what is it? Broadcast journalism, and that was my major. So with the TV being the focal point. And then that's what I studied because I wanted to do it right. I wanted to do it, in a good way, so that when I debut into the TV industry, I know I look believable. I know what I'm saying. I have the skill as well as not just the confidence. So then after that, that's when I decided to do my master's. And then yes, it was all planned thereafter. But yeah, in the beginning, not so planned.
Tell me about that moment when you got that job, because you were an intern at
Yeah.
Radio Africa,
Yes. No, I was actually working there
right? Okay.
as a radio presenter at East FM.
You just decided to let me record myself and just send in
Yeah.
my audios to...
For radio?
Yes.
Okay, so for radio, what happened was there was the call out for radio presenters, and they were actually looking for a male presenter. So I went for the audition with one of my really good friends, and we both ended up getting the job. So they were like, I think five men and me, and I got the job because I guess they probably saw something in me, and they thought that it was worth giving a shot. So I got a job with him on air. So we got a Saturday show, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So I did that while doing my uni and continuing with my undergraduate.
Yeah.
It was a great experience. I strongly believe that that's what really ignited this passion in me, because I discovered something that I was able to do, and I didn't really know that I had it in me. I've always been a people's person. I've always been someone who loves to perform. I've always been a dancer. I've been dancing since I was, I think, 4 years old. So I've got trained in dancing. So I've always been on stage, but I didn't really know that I wanted to pursue arts in this manner,
Yes.
you know, in the form of journalism and media.
Yes. You know, the biggest misconception I believe that is out there, people think that being a radio presenter is the easiest thing.
No,
'cause
it's not.
You just talk, but here you are, you find yourself with acres of minutes.
Yeah.
And you have to talk. Sometimes even words fail you. Like,
100%. Do you know, at times, people don't realize how long a minute is and how easy it is to like just fall short of words. 30 seconds, you're like, now what? So that's why there's a lot of planning involved in being a radio presenter. I personally believe being on radio is harder than being on TV. Because being on TV, you know, you can use your body language to be able to communicate. But being on radio, you have to just use words and your voice. And that's it. And for people to actually believe what you're saying, you need to say it in a certain manner. Content needs to be very planned, researched. You need to make sure that, you know, you have the three main points in terms of like the introduction, the middle, and the end. So you need to have these three set out very well. You need to prep. Prepping is so important. And I'm so thankful that I actually got that experience before I went to do my master's, because I was already ahead of the game.
Yes.
I already knew the radio side of the world. Then obviously now I started learning how TV works. So you are very right, radio is not easy. It's very difficult. It's one of the most challenging jobs. And whoever starts off as a radio presenter, I believe, is going to be far more successful in media than if you start on TV.
Yes.
That's what I believe.
Let's talk about the transition from radio now to TV.
Yeah.
Like, how was that process for you? And why did you decide to actually move from radio to TV?
So as I said, I've always been very interested in performing, you know, and I think when you go on TV, it's more of a performance, right? When you're on radio, you know, no one can see you. And I've always been into acting, modeling, just walking on stage and, you know, dancing. And I've been the person who wants to be seen out there, be it in the form of, as I said, you know, dancing or even being on TV. And that's where I truly, truly think that I wanted to be on TV because I wanted to be heard as well as I wanted to be seen. On radio, I was being heard, but I wasn't being seen.
Yes.
And that's why I was like, you know, let's take that extra step. And then obviously I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to have a powerful voice. I wanted to be able to like engage with the youth, especially because I'm the kind of person who has always believed in the younger generation and the power that they hold. You know, these are the game changers of the industry right now. And I always wanted to inspire them, be able to connect with them. And that's how I guess dancing came into the picture. So my passion for journalism, obviously, plus my passion for just being able to be seen and being able to be watched and engaging with the youth, I guess that's how TV came into the mix.
But then there was a short period when COVID hit and then
Yes.
you lost your job and
Yes.
all that.
Yes.
Maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, I
a
mean,
little bit.
it hit me very hard because I was very happy where I was, and I really thought that I was getting somewhere, right? And just where I was finally reaching, you know, even bigger platforms and even bigger audiences, and my numbers were growing on social media. People were recognizing me on Twitter as well. People started knowing me as the face of K24. I think it just all ended up like tumbling down, and it all crashed, and I was like, what next? I didn't have a plan B. I didn't know what to do. At that time, I couldn't even fall back on dancing because performing wasn't really happening.
Yes.
There were no shows going on. There were no events where you could go and perform with your dance crew. So I didn't really know what to do. That's when I realized that social media is the most powerful tool. I wasn't doing much, to be honest. And I mean, I was at home, people were at home, and I just realized that, you know, if this has happened to me, it's happened to a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
And so many people have the time of the day to like be able to just be on social media and watch and you know, be able to relate to the kind of content that I'm putting out there. People want to laugh. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We don't really know how to be able to get happy, to feel that happiness. We're miserable. We're not going out. So that's how I realized that let's just make people feel a bit lighthearted, take away from the fact that we are, you know, going through some of the toughest times in the world, and focus now on the positive, on the good, and just make people feel good. And I feel great while dancing, so I want to do the same for people. So I just started posting out there, and I didn't really know that, you know, people really like my content. That's how TikTok just grew. So my numbers started growing on TikTok, and I was like, wait, I'm doing something right. So I continued. I started
Yes.
becoming very intentional
Yes.
with the kind of content I started putting out
Yeah.
there. I was bonding with my mom. My mom loves to dance as well. So she's like, let me be in your videos. So we started doing content together. And people really enjoyed that side of me
Yeah.
because they were so used to seeing me on TV, just reading the news. No one really knew that I could do this as well and do it well.
Yes.
People just knew that I was a dancer, but no one
dancer.
really knew that I was a professional dancer.
Let me take you back to when you actually lost your job. Because
Yes.
losing a job is actually such a huge deal, especially
of
if
course.
it has never happened to
Yeah,
you.
no, never.
What were some of the emotions that you went through? Because some people, it usually takes them, leaves them depressed or
Yeah,
stressed.
yeah.
Like you said, you didn't have a plan
Yeah.
B. How at that moment, what was going through your mind?
Do you know the first thing I did? I started emailing other TV stations. I literally didn't even take a minute to process what was going on because that was my first reaction. It was an impulse reaction. I was just reacting out of desperation. I started emailing everyone. I started making calls. Then a week into it, I think that's when it hit me. Wow, I don't have a job. And that's when I was just like, okay, what next? So I was very depressed. I started feeling anxiety. I went through this phase of bouts of like panics. Like you wake up and you have a panic attack and you're like, okay, I'm so idle. What am I doing in my time? I've been one person who is not used to being free, who doesn't know what to do when I have so much time in my hands, right?
Yeah.
I become very unproductive. I just sit in bed and I just procrastinate and I'm on social media for hours on end because I don't know what to do with myself.
Yes, here you are,
Yeah.
popular news anchor,
Yeah.
and now everything is just.
I was so used to routine.
Yes.
And that's taken of you. It's like you just end up becoming very disoriented because you're so used to waking up at a certain time, going to work at a certain time, coming back home at a certain time, and then getting ready for your next, assignment. So it was all structured. And then when that's taken away from you, you feel like a baby who's just trying to walk. So I had to pick myself up and I had
Yeah.
to figure out what to do next. So that
Yes.
took time. So it's very easy to completely fall off the radar, to completely lose momentum, to literally not know what to do next. And I was like in that particular, stage in my life where I just didn't know where to go, what to do. I didn't even want to talk to anybody. I was just on my own. I was trying to figure myself out. And I spent a lot of time with family at that point.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for family because, if it wasn't for family, it's very easy to get depressed. And it's very easy to lose that zeal and motivation. And when that happens to you, bouncing back is even harder. So just before that happened, I think I was able to get out of it and realize that, okay, I've lost a job. I'm not the only one. So many people out here have lost
Yeah.
jobs. And I guess, that comfort that I got in knowing that I still have a talent. I still have something that I'm gifted at, which is dance. So I decided to channel all my energy there. And then I guess that's how I was able to bounce back.
I think you are one of the lucky few who, got to have something different that you saw,
Yes.
that you had. Now, for that person who had 100%.
Oh, it's
put
very
on-
difficult.
Yeah, to think of the transition to something else. Let's move now to the media industry, and I want you to be very candid when you talk about this. About news anchors, female especially, have usually been sexualized. How has this been? Have you ever experienced this in your career as a female news anchor?
So I think I've been very lucky because I've not really experienced anything like this. I mean, I do have the casual advances here and there of, oh, give me your number, or let's have a coffee, but it's not been to the extent where it's been something that I'm afraid of. It's been something that I'm uncomfortable with. So no, I think I have not experienced anything like this. And I feel like it's very, very important for you as an individual, as a news anchor, to draw your boundaries. So if a man is, talking to you, you need to be very professional. You need to make sure that he knows where your headspace is at, and you keep it very, very, I guess, limited in the sense your interaction is very limited. Don't give them any sort of impression where they can feel like there is room for them to make advances at you. So even if they ask for your number, just casually decline.
Yeah.
Just say, no, I'm sorry, I don't give out my number.
Yes.
Or just be like, no, I'm in a relationship, I'm sorry, but this is where we draw the line, and we keep it very professional, and we don't take it anywhere further
Yeah.
than that. So I guess that's very important. I've been lucky that I haven't had any scary encounters or anything to the point where I've been I'm uncomfortable,
Yes.
and I've not been able to figure out what to do next. I've not had any of those experiences.
Yes.
So I call myself lucky, and I also think you as an individual have to be very headstrong
Yeah.
to draw your line, to draw your boundaries, and if anyone does come at you with that intention, just report it immediately. Don't keep it inside. Go and tell your bosses, or go and tell somebody.
What if it is your boss?
What if it's your boss? Now that's a bit of a. I think that's where I wouldn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
But if that ever happens to you, I guess then you speak to your family, or you speak to maybe somebody who is in a senior position as well, in the same industry, or in the same media station, or in the same company, and then But like talking to people is very important.
Yeah.
Don't keep quiet, because then I guess that's when people take advantage of you.
Yeah. In your own opinion, do women have to work 10 times harder in that space? Because being a news anchor, maybe
Yeah.
someone might see you as someone
Yeah.
who is just, a blonde.
Oh yeah,
And,
that one.
you just come in,
Yeah.
a script has already been
Yeah.
written for you,
Yeah.
you just read the news and that's
Yeah.
that's it. There's nothing more you can,
Yeah. Yeah.
do.
Do you know, in the beginning when I first joined K24 on Twitter, the amount of backlash that I got, because firstly, there was the impression that, because I'm light skinned, I've got the job, not because I'm beautiful, I've got the job. And nobody knew that I had a master's. I mean, I don't go out there telling everyone,
Yeah.
oh, hi, I have a master's in broadcast journalism. I mean, you don't do that, right? So when people finally saw that I'm not just a pretty face, but I have brains as well, that's when people started, respecting me and giving me that sort of respect that I deserved in my field. So I remember there was one Twitter troll that said, oh, this one is just a pretty face with a nice body, and all she does is show her legs and dance. So I remember I saw something like that. And then I replied saying, and you forgot that she also has a master's. And I remember that's when, that tweet went viral. And people were just like, oh, good for you, shut them down. So sometimes I feel like, as much as you shouldn't engage with trolls, and it's not really the best of things to do, because you're kind of giving them that, you're fueling the
Yeah.
fire. But sometimes you need to give it back to them, especially so that they realize that as much as they're hiding behind a keyboard, they're also hurting people's sentiments and people's feelings. So I had to do that, and I was very happy that I did that. So yeah, no, news anchors are not just pretty faces or models, on TV. That's what they call them, just reading a script out of a script. No, we have to do interviews. We have to research. We have to prep really, really hard, because what if the person that you're interviewing is 10 times more qualified than you, in the sense that they have like 4 degrees, in the sense that they've had experience for years. Their qualifications, their academical qualifications are just so up there. You have to match up to them, because you need to know what you're doing so that they can give you content. Because if you ask them questions that are very serious or straight, a yes or no answer, you're not going to get anything out of them, and your boss is going to be calling you, what kind of interview was that? That was a ridiculous interview. So you need to work 10 times to be able to prove to these people out there who are just watching you, and you just believe that you're a pretty face that you're not. So yeah, 10 times harder, maybe even 20.
Even 20. But don't you think colorism is still a problem?
Oh yeah, it is. I agree. As much as people say it's not, it is. Sometimes I feel like we need to be able to have very thick skin to be able to deal with such comments. For instance, if I was in an audition with somebody who is darker than me, and they wouldn't get the job, this person will feel that, okay, I haven't got the job just because I'm dark skinned, right? But you may say it's not entirely the case, but at times, to a certain extent, it is still there, and we have to accept it, that it's still there in the media industry. But we have really, really made some serious growth, and I feel like that's something that we need to, pat the people who are involved,
Yeah.
like in terms of the senior editors or in terms of the directors, because I feel like that mentality is changing. Now you even see some news anchors going on air with braids. That didn't happen back in the day, right? So I feel like we are making some advances towards being more fair and less based towards the way you look, or the way you dress, or the way your skin looks and the color of your skin. I feel like we are changing. The mindset of people is changing, and it's a good thing. But yes, there is some colorism. I will not deny that. But at the same time, I feel like we have made some serious progress in kind of changing and shifting that narrative, and making people understand that you don't need to be light skinned to be on air, to be a news anchor. So no, that's not the case.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you have to go on air, you have to be this other person
Yeah.
than who you are right now?
I feel like I did in the beginning, and that's why I decided to show my true self on social media, because there is a misconception that news anchors are very serious, boring, rigid, stiff. They don't really have a personality of their own, and that's what I was trying to change. And I feel like I will probably take a lot of credit for this, because after I started posting videos out there, I've also seen another batch of news anchors, the older generation. They're also putting out fun videos of behind the scenes, and people are also trying to show their personality and who they are, rather than just being portrayed as being this rigid statue.
Yeah.
That's what people think that we are, but we're not. We have personalities, we have fun, we like to do other things, we have talents, we have hobbies, we enjoy doing things rather than being on news. So I feel like you need to also show who you are. It may not be on news, obviously, because you may be talking about a terrorist attack, or you may be talking about murder, or you may be talking about corruption. So you can't really do it with a smile, right? You have to be very credible, and for that you need to be able to do it with credibility. So that sort of authoritativeness only comes with being very what can I say, upright, and having that posture and having that tone. So that's fine, because that shows that you're good at your job. But at the same time, you also need to make sure that you have a life, and people know that you're not just a news anchor, you are a person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what is the biggest misconception people you think have about you?
I think the biggest misconception people had about me, I think that's changed now, is that, as you said, that I'm just a pretty face, right? So back in the day when I first started off, it was like maybe
she's Indian, she has connections.
Yeah, she has connections, she has money, she has network.
That's why she has that job.
I come from a very middle class family. My dad has worked really hard to raise me. My dad had to do a lot more than he would do to send me abroad for my masters. He helped me, and of course now I'm supporting them. So I generally feel like starting from humble beginnings is very important, because it grounds you. So contrary to belief, no, I'm not a rich background. No, I don't have connections. I had to audition. I remember I auditioned at K24 3 months, and even after auditioning for 3 months, I had to go for 3 months of training, so that they put me on air. So that's 6 months before I officially started getting paid and got the job. And mind you, you're still spending money on fuel. You're still showing up to work every single day. So it's not that I had any connections. It's not that I had, I come from a powerful background with influence. No, I had to work hard. I had to show that I'm worth it, because I'm starting from scratch, right? I'd never been on TV, and I had to learn everything. Although I had a degree, but I had never had the experience and practice. So I felt like that was my biggest challenge, proving to people, not just, by the way, the viewers, even within the industry. My fellow news anchors back in the day thought I got the job because I knew someone who knew someone, and that was not true. So I had to prove to all of them. I remember my co-anchors and people in the industry would tell, I would hear these whispers. They would be like, this one has just got the job because she has connections, or because she's pretty. This one wouldn't get a job otherwise. That's what I would hear, and it would really hurt me at first, because it's very discouraging to hear people say such things about you, especially when you've worked really hard to get to that position where you are. So I feel like that was the misconception in the beginning, but it's changed, and I think I have proved to everyone out there who had that misconception that no, she's not just a pretty face. Because even last year, I did the elections. We covered the elections. We worked. I had the night shift, which I believe is the hardest shift. You start at 9 p.m. and you finish at 6 a.m. And then you're interviewing a whole panel of people who know politics. So I feel like that's something that I had to adapt to, interviewing people of that the status that they're on, the influence that they have, and in terms of the knowledge. So again, you have to do a lot of work. So I've really worked hard to get to where I am today, and I will not say that I had to, pull a fast one to get there at
Yeah.
all. No.
Being a journalist, you tell a lot of stories. Like, can you share which is the most difficult story you have ever covered that really left you, your heart wrenching and all that?
So I remember for me, I had to cover the Dusit attack, and I was at the Westgate attack. So I was called in to cover it for 7 hours, and talking about something that you have PTSD, that's post-traumatic stress disorder, about was not easy, because
Wait, why are you having PTSD about
because
it?
I was at the Westgate attack.
For Dusit now.
No, for Westgate.
For Westgate.
So then I had to cover Dusit.
Yes.
I was called in at 6 a.m. to cover the Dusit attack. So obviously, covering something that you have been a part of previously, it was very traumatic for me. It was very difficult for me, and then they're reporting the people who've passed away, the amount of people who've lost their lives, the injuries that have been sustained, and how giving details about the terrorists and how they attacked, and all the blood and all the violence. So it was very traumatic for me. So for me, that was the most difficult story that I had to do, because it's something that I'm very emotionally close to and attached to, being somebody who has been in a terrorist attack and a victim of a terrorist attack. So I think for me that was the hardest story that I had to cover.
Maybe you can share about your experience on that.
Of course, of the covering the
being a
Westgate
victim
attack.
of a terrorist attack, yeah.
Yeah, we were in there for like 2 hours. It was, one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. Almost lost my life because we were being attacked, and the terrorists threw a grenade at us, but it didn't go off, and it was literally just maybe you can say 100 meters away from where I was, and I was with a group of kids and parents, because I was at the East FM cooking competition. So it was a children's cooking competition, and I remember I was with Ruhila Datia right before she passed on. We were together, and then when it happened, everyone just scattered, and everyone was dispersed. So when that happened, we lost her. So I feel for me it was a very difficult experience. Again, I had to undergo therapy for that. I had to go through counseling. Every time I hear something loud, I get scared. It's like I start panicking. So I've had a very difficult time coming out of it.
Were you rescued immediately, or?
No, 2 hours. We were in there for 2 hours before we were rescued. So I remember it started off at 12:30, and we were rescued around 2:33. Yeah. And with the rooftop.
Yes.
So that's where we were the most exposed, right? Because they were coming, they kept coming in, kept going out, kept, shooting. They were shooting, and people were like falling while you're running. So it was like a movie.
That's a traumatic.
Not a movie that I ever want to relive,
Yeah.
obviously. But yeah, every time I hear about terrorist attacks, or I hear about something that has happened to do with terrorism, it does bring back those feelings of panic, of fear, anxiety again. So yeah, the trauma never disappears, because even though it's been 10 years this year, it's going to be 10 years in September, it's something that is stuck with me through life.
How long did it take for you to recover, to even go to, social places,
I actually went to Westgate the year it opened, because obviously it took time before it opened, right? So I wanted to get that closure. It was very important for me. So I went to Westgate, I went to the rooftop, everything was changed, it didn't look like the way it was, so I think that was a good thing, but I still go to Westgate. But yeah, before entering a mall, I think it took me a year before I stepped foot into a mall. Yeah, it took a year before I was finally able to enter into any mall, not just Westgate.
Yes.
But then I actually did go into Westgate. I know people who haven't still gone to Westgate after that experience, and obviously I understand why. But I had to do it because, I'm the kind of person who needs closure. So I did it for myself, to be able to come out of that experience. And for that to happen, I needed to be in there.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Now, let me take you all the way away from this sad story.
Yes.
And talk about content creation. How do you separate it from being a news anchor? Because, there's a thin line between it being a conflict of interest. Yeah.
Yes,
So how do you work around that?
So I only create content on my social media. I don't associate it with being a news anchor at all. So the brands that I work with, I'm very careful to see if it's kind of,
But isn't your
tainting.
social media sort of linked to who you are?
Of course it is. My
yes,
social
and
media
you
is,
are a news anchor.
yeah, my social media is linked to who I am, in the sense
And where you work.
where I work,
Yes.
which is completely, it is. But at the same time, remember, as I said, social media is a reflection of who you are. So aside from being a news anchor, I'm also an individual who is creative, who has an interest in creating content, and who likes to be able to, portray a message. Could be of dancing, because I do have interests that are not just reading the news. So which is why when you are putting content out there, you have to make sure the brands you choose are aligned with your image of a news anchor. So I wouldn't work with a condom brand. I definitely wouldn't do that.
Yes.
Okay, so these are things, there's some no's and there's some yes. So you have to make sure that you draw the line. It's not always about the money. So you have to make sure the brands that you work with don't come out and represent you in a wrong way. So I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So as I said, there's just certain brands that I would never work with. And like alcohol, I do work with alcohol brands, but that's also in a very respectful way. You encourage the drink better, not more. You encourage the whole notion of, yes, if you're drinking, you have to eat. If you're drinking, you have to also have water with you. If you're drinking alcohol, you don't drive. So you do it in a very respectful manner, so that people know that your image of a news anchor. Because the truth is, news anchors drink. We're human beings,
That's
right?
the truth.
Some news anchors do drink,
Yes.
although not all drink.